Well, hi, friends. I'm your old pal, Papa Dale. I'm a retired pastor, teacher, theologian, and professor with over 50 years of service to the Lord Jesus Christ. My name is Dale Warren, but professionally I'm known in my writing, teaching, and lectures as D.A. Warren. And my friends just call me Papa Dale, so please just call me Papa Dale. You can see the details of my testimony, family education, ministry experience on other videos on this playlist. So for now, let's just get right into today's lecture. Now, today's lecture is an extremely important one. The title of it is The Intertestamental Period. A lot of Christians kind of think that the period of time between the end of Malachi and the beginning of Matthew, which is about 400 years, that it is just a do-nothing period. Nothing really of importance happened. That is not true at all. It is this intertestamental period that structures the entire world environment to prepare for the coming of Jesus Christ and the spread of Christianity. If it hadn't been for all of the elements in this intertestamental period, it would have been much more difficult for Christ to appear and for Christianity to spread. And so, let's get right into it. The intertestamental period, also known as the silent years, spans roughly 400 years between the close of the Old Testament and the beginning of the New Testament. This era, from the end of the book of Malachi to the birth of John the Baptist and Jesus Christ, is crucial for understanding the historical and cultural context of the New Testament. Although not covered directly in the canonical texts, this period is rich with historical significance that shapes the understanding of the New Testament. Evangelical sources emphasize key elements, key developments during this period, including the rise of Hellenism, the Maccabean revolt, and Roman influence, among others. And so let's look at some of these things. The rise of Hellenism. The first significant development of the intertestamental period is the spread of Hellenism, which is a cultural and intellectual influence derived from the Greek civilization. After the conquests of Alexander the Great in 356 to 323 BC, Greek culture spread throughout the Near East. This process is known as Hellenization, and it involved the dissemination of Greek language, literature, and customs. For evangelicals, the influence of Hellenism is absolutely crucial for understanding the context of the New Testament. My friends, you need to pay close attention to this lecture. Now, Hellenism introduced Greek as the lingua franca of the region. That means the language in common use, the language of business, the language of a lot of things. And this lingua franca, Greek, Hellenistic Greek, Koine Greek, which would later facilitate the spread of the gospel. Everybody spoke Greek, and so the transmission of the texts about the Bible were in Greek. That way it could go to all cultures and all languages. Now the Septuagint, also known as the LXX, that's the Greek symbol for the word 70, it is a Greek translation of the Old Testament and was produced during this period and is cited in the New Testament, indicating its importance to early Christians. Oftentimes when you have biblical citations in the New Testament about the Old Testament, you can trace the source to the Greek translation, the way the Greek translation says it in the Septuagint. Now, evangelicals view this translation, the Septuagint, as a significant development because it made the Jewish scriptures accessible to the wider Greek-speaking world. And another major thing that happened that totally affects this 400-year historic period is the Maccabean Revolt. It's a critical event in the intertestamental period, and it goes from 167 to 160 BC, and the revolt was sparked by the oppressive policies of Antiochus IV, called Epiphanes, who attempted to impose Hellenistic practices on the Jewish people. The desecration of the Jewish temple and the forced Hellenization of Judaism led to vigorous resistance. The Maccabees, a Jewish family led by Matthias and his sons, particularly Judah Maccabee, led a successful revolt against the Seleucid Empire. The Maccabean period is celebrated for the rededication of the temple in 164 BC, an event commemorated by the festival of Hanukkah. Where did Hanukkah come from? Hanukkah came from the quote-unquote silent period between Malachi and Matthew, and it was the result of the revolt of the Maccabees. For evangelicals, the Maccabean revolt exemplifies the Jewish struggle for religious freedom and purity, which sets the stage for the socio-political climate in which Jesus was born. Then the third super major point is the Hasmonean dynasty. Following the Maccabean revolt, the Hasmonean dynasty emerged, establishing a semi-independent Jewish state. This dynasty, founded by Simon Maccabeus, marked a period of relative political autonomy for the Jewish people. The Hasmonean rulers expanded their territory and attempted to consolidate power. However, internal strife and external pressures, particularly from Rome, eventually led to the decline of the Hasmonean dynasty. By the time of the New Testament, Roman influence was significant, and the political landscape had shifted. Evangelicals often point to the Hasmonean period as a time of both religious zeal and political instability, which influenced the expectations and the hopes of the Jewish people concerning the coming of the Messiah. Well, this was followed up very quickly by the Roman influence and the Herodian dynasty. The final phase of this instrumental period involves the rise of Roman power in the region. In 63 BC, Pompey the Great captured Jerusalem, and Judea became a client kingdom of Rome. The Herodian dynasty, founded by Herod the Great, was established during this time. Herod's reign was 37 to 4 BC, and it is noted for its extensive building projects, including the renovation of the Second Temple. For evangelicals, Herod's rule represents the complex relationship between the Jewish people and the Roman authority. The Gospels describe Herod the Great's attempt to eliminate the newborn Jesus and reflects the tension and fear surrounding Roman rule. Additionally, the Roman period set the stage for the New Testament's narrative, including the political and social context in which Jesus' ministry unfolded. Well, what is the socio-religious context? During the intertestamental period, several Jewish sects emerged, each with its own interpretation of Judaism. There was the Pharisees, the Sadducees, the Essenes, and the Zealots. These are the most notable. The Pharisees focused on oral traditions and interpretations of the law, while the Sadducees were associated with the priestly and aristocratic class. The Essenes, who lived in monastic communities, are often linked with the Dead Sea Scrolls. The Zealots, on the other hand, were revolutionary nationalists, always wanting to overthrow Roman rule. Now, these groups had diverse beliefs and practices which illustrate the varied expectations of the Messiah and the religious landscape that Jesus encountered. Evangelicals emphasize the understanding of these sects that help explain the New Testament interactions and conflicts, particularly in relation to the teachings of Jesus and the early church. And so, the instrumental period is a bridge between the intertestamental period is a bridge between the Old and New Testaments, filled with significant historical, cultural, and religious developments. Evangelical sources highlight the impact of Hellenism, the Maccabean Revolt, the Hasmonean and Herodian dynasties, and the diverse Jewish sects. These factors collectively shaped the environment into which Jesus was born, and where the early Christian church began to spread its message. By examining this period, evangelicals gain a deeper appreciation of the historical context of the New Testament. And this helps to illuminate the significance of Jesus' ministry and the early church mission. The intertestamental era is not merely a gap, but a foundational period that profoundly influenced the trajectory of biblical history. The influence of Jewish apostolic literature cannot be overstated. During the intertestamental period, Jewish apocalyptic literature flourished. This genre includes texts like the Book of Enoch, the Book of Jubilees, the Apocalypse of Baruch. These writings reflect a period of intense expectation and hope for divine intervention. Apocalyptic literature often emphasized themes of cosmic conflict, judgment, and the coming of a messianic kingdom. For evangelicals, these texts provide insight into the eschatological expectations that shaped Jewish thought leading up to the New Testament period. They highlight the heightened anticipation for a Messiah and a dramatic change in the world order, which frames the New Testament's portrayal of Jesus as the fulfillment of these expectations. Well, there's also the rise of the role of synagogues and rabbinic teachings that was profound in this period. The intertestamental period saw this development of synagogues and the central institution in Jewish life. Because with the destruction of the first temple and the subsequent rise of the second temple, the synagogue became the crucial place for communal worship, prayer, and teaching. Rabbinic teachings, which would later form the basis of the Mishnah and the Talmud, began to take shape during this time. The Pharisees, in particular, were influential in developing oral traditions and interpretations of the law. And for evangelicals, understanding the role of the synagogues and rabbinic teachings is essential for comprehending the religious environment of Jesus' day. The Gospels often depict Jesus interacting with synagogue leaders and engaging in debates about the law. And this reflects the influence of these traditions. And you can't understate or you can't overstate the impact of the Roman Empire either. The Roman Empire's influence was profoundly felt during the final years of the intertestamental period. The Roman Republic transitioned into the Roman Empire under Augustus Caesar in 27 BC to AD 14, and Judea became a Roman province. Roman rule brought about significant administrative and infrastructural changes, including the development of roads and cities, which facilitated communication and travel. The Pax Romana, or the interpretation of that is the Roman peace, created a relative stability that allowed for the spread of ideas, including the Christian message. Evangelicals often highlight how the Roman infrastructure and relative peace provided a conducive environment for the rapid spread of Christianity in the early years of the church. The intertestamental period also was marked by diverse and intense messianic expectations. Various periods anticipated different kinds of messiahs, a warrior king, a priestly redeemer, or a prophetic figure. These expectations were influenced by historical events and religious traditions. The diverse messianic hopes are evident in the New Testament narratives. For instance, the expectation of a Davidic Messiah is reflected in the genealogies of Jesus, which emphasize his connection to King David. Evangelicals see these expectations as a backdrop to New Testament's claim that Jesus fulfilled the messianic prophecies, and this offers a deeper understanding of the significance of his life and ministry. Now, the rise of Jewish sects and their influence on early Christianity is highly important. The emergence of these sects during the intertestamental period has a profound impact on the religious landscape of the New Testament. Each sect had its own interpretation of the law and expectations for the Messiah. The Pharisees, who were known for their strict adherence to the law and oral traditions, the Pharisees had a significant influence on later rabbinic Judaism. Their debates with Jesus, as recorded in the Gospels, reflect the tension between Jesus' teachings and the Pharisaic tradition. The Sadducees, associated with the temple, the priesthood, and the aristocracy, had different views on resurrection and the afterlife. Their opposition to Jesus and the early Christians is evident in the New Testament. The Essenes, known for their ascetic lifestyle and communal living, are often linked with the Dead Sea Scrolls. Their emphasis on purity and anticipation of a messianic figure provides context for understanding the various messianic expectations of the time. The Zealots, who sought to overthrow the Roman Empire, are significant in understanding the political climate of Jesus' time. The zealot Simon is mentioned as one of Jesus' apostles, reflecting the diverse backgrounds of Jesus' followers. Understanding these sects helps evangelicals appreciate the complexities of the religious and political landscape that Jesus navigated and how the early church interacted with these groups. Get a little drink here. Better. Now, what is the significance of this intertestamental period for New Testament theology? Well, I'm going to tell you. The intertestamental period is critical for New Testament theology, as it sets the stage for the whole life and ministry of Jesus Christ. What if you went to a play and you had actors on a stage, but the stage was just totally blank? You just had people repeating their lines and moving across the stage, but there was only a curtain behind. There were no props of any kind. That would not lead to a real satisfying or fulfilling performance. And the intertestamental period is critical for setting the stage for the life and ministry of Jesus Christ. It's important for us to be able to understand this. I can't overstate this. All of these things that we've just been talking about, Hellenism, the Maccabees, Roman rule, all of these things are critically important for setting the environment. The period's historical, cultural, and religious developments provide context for key New Testament themes. Evangelicals emphasize that many New Testament events are seen as fulfillments of Old Testament prophecies. The messianic expectations and apocalyptic themes from the intertestamental period help frame the understanding of Jesus as the fulfillment of these prophecies. The religious and political dynamics of the intertestamental period influence Jesus' teachings and interactions with various groups. His teachings often address the contemporary issues and conflicts shaped by this period. The spread of Christianity in the Roman Empire, facilitated by the infrastructure and relative peace of the Pax Romana, is seen as a direct outcome of the conditions established during the intertestamental period. Now, the intertestamental period is far from a mere historical gap. It is a crucial time that shaped the world into which Jesus was born and into which the early church emerged. For evangelicals, this period provides essential context for understanding the New Testament, highlighting how historical and cultural developments influenced the life of Jesus, the teachings of the early church, and the spread of Christianity. So by examining the rise of Hellenism, the Maccabean revolt, the Hasmonean and the Herodian dynasties, the influence of Roman rule, and the diverse Jewish sects, evangelicals gain a richer understanding of the New Testament narrative and its theological implications. The intertestamental period thus serves as a vital bridge that connects the Old and the New Testaments, offering deeper insight into the continuity and the fulfillment of God's redemptive plan through Jesus Christ. Now, this has been your old pal, Papa Dale, as your host, going through this intertestamental period, the time between the Old and the New Testament. And this is the year 2024. As usual, I will remind you that this is a part of the Bachelor of Arts in Biblical Literature degree, and if you're pursuing that, you need to go back and read the literal word-for-word script of this lecture, of these lecture notes. And as you do so, every time you run into a Bible citation or a Bible verse, you need to look that Bible verse up. Now, I anticipate that the Lord will allow me to return to upload another video, and if He does, until that point in time, this has been your old pal Papa Dale, and I am signing off for now, but I'm saying I will be praying for you that you will be well and that you will be blessed.